And every occupation that is named is over. I'm going to be a dentist, radiologist, accountant, teacher. These are all over. Whatever's coming, get flexible, get good on a bunch of different stuff. Learn how to think across disciplines. I have no idea what's going to be left for us. But you know, somebody's going to come out on top. And I hate to tell people that you should try to come out on top. I don't think it's healthy to have everyone trying to be world class. I think you should be able to just have a life. I have a golden retriever. I don't know that it's the greatest golden retriever in the world. Sometimes I think it is, but he does a lot of dumb stuff. But he's my golden retriever. I just don't think it. I think that this mania for optimization, like if you look at your own videos, you'll find some of the best performing videos are, this is how to succeed. This is how to get anyone you want. This is how to get out of a bad situation. People just want capacity. But for what? Okay, you've optimized your day, you've optimized your health, your social media is optimized. Now what?
Now what?
I don't know.
Ooh, welcome to another reaction. My name is Chitru. This is No Right, No Wrong. I'm going to be looking at a video here. I think it's really interesting. It's Eric Weinstein on the diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. I actually think this was a very, you would say, controversial, but I thought there was very interesting topics all through this conversation. As well, I really think Stephen did a great job as the host for this show. Eric Weinstein, in my opinion, I think it was a really, would you call it interesting, controversial, whatever the case might be, but a lot of points did come up that I found really, really intriguing. I'm going to go through different sections of it. It's about 2 hours, 30 minutes. If you want to watch the whole thing, it's on the Diary of a CEO, DOAC YouTube channel. On there, you can see the full interview. But we're going to do a little highlight reaction here on the channel as well. So we're going to go through different clips for that conversation. I thought it was really a lot of things were touched on AI, the Jeffrey Epstein case, and a few, in a conversation, different topics of interest actually coming up. So let's get right into it right now.
Advising me to be Christian in tradition, but not in necessarily in belief.
Well, this is the thing. You're alienated because you think that you have to be a believer in order to go in, otherwise you're faking it.
Yeah.
Get over yourself. That's not how it works.
That's true. That's me just me being honest. I do think that if I went to a church and I sung and I prayed and stuff, and I didn't believe, funny. I'd be like, it'd be fake.
Oh, okay. Do you imagine that all those people who go to church are just sitting there 100% sure that there's a Jesus to pray to? Do you know any Christians?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like that. They sneak off and do bad things. If they were confident that Jesus was watching everything that they were doing, and they were constantly talking about how they sin. I'm a sinner, right? It's a very complicated, interesting piece of kit. And my claim is that, I said the Lord's Prayer as part of going to high school.
I genuinely think that that's a fantastic point. Not everybody in church. One thing I remember being in church is that it's all about belief and faith, right? So in that congregation, people do bad things and they still find a way to come in there. Are they faking it? Are they maintaining some level of hope? I think that's really interesting, but I really thought that was an interesting point made there, something to actually think about.
Programmed to wait for AGI.
Well, I heard, people that I think are very smart, much smarter than me, talk about the...
Don't listen to them.
Elon?
Sure.
I mean, he says that it's our biggest existential threat is AI.
Elon has become the outsourcing for much of our intelligence. And if Elon means anything to you, he's really saying to you, don't listen to me, do something remarkable. He's saying, where is everybody? Why is there only one Elon? There used to be lots of them.
Why is there only one Elon?
Yeah, not the right question. Where did all the other Elons go?
Same question, is it not?
No, I think that why is there only one Elon makes Elon feel more singular. You know, if you ever get a chance to go to Cappadocia or Bryce National Park in Utah, you see what happens, which is that you'll have a stone that was resting on the soil, and suddenly the wind starts to erode everything except the compactified soil right under that stone, and you get what's called a fairy chimney or a hood. And so the claim is that sometimes you get these isolated structures, and the key point is everything else eroded away. We're supposed to have tons of Elon. And everybody else got taken out.
What or who took them out?
Look at how much trouble Elon has being Elon. Look, we keep hearing about him, you know, he's on drugs. Great, take drugs. No, I'm not kidding. Do you know how many amazing people take drugs?
Pause.
If you care about Jeff,
Pause. Oh my goodness. First of all, okay. First things first, I think on the conversation about Elon, there are lots of people doing amazing things. It's not just Elon. Elon is just the most popular amongst them. Yeah, it helps when you're the richest guy and you have his kind of personality as well. So that's kind of a thing. So maybe I kind of get what he means by not referring to why is there just one Elon. There's lots of Elons, and they don't have to be exactly like Elon to be doing great things or amazing stuff. So that's one thing. On the question of just do drugs, I kind of get it in the sense about the mindset. You know, people do steroids and stuff like that, or you might as well do what you got to do legally in a way to achieve a goal or whatever the case might be. I guess it might be a little bit brash to say just go do drugs without actual context, and just to be clear about what kind of drugs Elon is accused of actually taking, things like Adderall and stuff like that. So it's important to have context for that. Get back into it.
let's put it this way. One of the things when people tell me about their moving from one city to another, I have a phrase that nobody likes, which is every place is over. Oh, I'm moving to Austin. Yeah, it's over. Miami, it's over. Nashville, over. You know, all these places are over. And every occupation that is named is over. I'm going to be a dentist, radiologist, accountant, teacher. These are all over. Whatever's coming, get flexible, get good on a bunch of different stuff. Learn how to think across disciplines. I have no idea what's going to be left for us. But you know, somebody's going to come out on top. And I hate to tell people that you should try to come out on top. I don't think it's healthy to have everyone trying to be world class. I think you should be able to just have a life. And I have a golden retriever. I don't know that it's the greatest golden retriever in the world. Sometimes I think it is, but it does a lot of dumb stuff. But he's my golden retriever. I just don't think it. I think that this mania for optimization, like if you look at your own videos, you'll find some of the best performing videos are, this is how to succeed. This is how to get anyone you want. This is how to get out of a bad situation. People just want capacity. But for what? Okay, you've optimized your day. You've optimized your health. Your social media is optimized. Now what?
Now what?
I don't know.
What should be then? Say, you know, is it time to just? One would say, well, now one would incorrectly say, well, now I can play with my golden retriever, and then one would say, well, you should have been playing with your golden retriever the whole time.
But let me put it a little differently. Through some bizarre accident, I've gotten a chance to meet incredible people that I don't even talk about who I've met, you know? I've gotten a chance to see the world. I haven't seen South America, but I've seen most of the other continents other than the Antarctic. I've had a really rich life. Take somebody who hasn't had those opportunities, but they got a chance to have 3 kids. I'm not sure I wouldn't trade places. I so enjoyed raising my children. And it's available to everyone. It's such a strange thing that we're talking about optimization, all this stuff. I get to think about the substrate of the universe, theoretical physics. I dream about visiting the stars. I dream about multiple dimensions of time, meeting aliens, all sorts of things. I still think having kids was like unbeatable. I'm so sad that it's over. I'm so sad that they moved out. I cannot believe that I was dumb enough to live in a society that doesn't believe in having your kids with you your whole life. The idea that we look at places where kids live at home as backwards is beyond me. And shout out to the entire Indian subcontinent. You know, it's just like family is everything. They drive me crazy. But it just, meaning is available for you. And again, you know, every time I get a chance to eat a rambutan, it's one of my favorite fruits. Mangoes, rambutans, jackfruit, sitafal, if you can get custard apple. The amount of pleasure I get. I've never had a good custard apple in the entire time I've lived in the US. Not one. I've had a frozen one imported from Taiwan. You get this cherimoya. Just get out of here, cherimoya. You're not good. Great custard apple, great sitafal or ramfal. What a pleasure to be on this earth. And it's available to almost anyone. I just think that you can find meaning. You know, for God's sakes, go to Spotify if you have a connection. If you can afford a connection to Spotify, and put in Pablo Casal's version of the Bach cello suites. You're as rich as you need.
Okay, I think that was, deep. But I think that's interesting. Valuing and appreciating the little things. That's what it is. The argument is you want to actually, experience the big things as well. So that's a thing. But would I agree? I think that is a profound statement, and it's a personal experience for him. So
Dumb enough, some of them, to say, they send all these missiles and they couldn't even hit anyone. And I'm just thinking, do none of you understand anything? I just don't even know where I am. And I'm looking at, I know Tulsi.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. Tulsi's amazing.
She's the head of the intelligence program for the United States.
Director of National Intelligence, right? Tulsi has seen the devastation, not of war, but of U.S. action abroad. Like, we haven't really had full wars, but we get involved in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever. And people die and there are firefights. It's not like it has nothing to do with war, but full-on war is a very different thing. We say the Iraq War, but I want to be very careful about the language. War usually involves you getting rocked at home, not just your troops abroad. I don't think she appreciates the gravity of the situation, that somehow what we need to do is we need to stabilize this thing for 50 to 100 years while we desperately try to figure out a long-term solution. And this idea of we're not taking responsibility for the world we already screwed up. I don't want to send Americans, I'm not an Israeli, I'm an American. I don't want to send my fellow Americans to die in foreign battles that we have no business being in. But we have to take ownership of our history with oil and energy in the Middle East.
And what does that look like, taking ownership?
Recognizing that we created the mullahs.
And doing what about
And
it?
wait a second, not just that, and that we also created a lot of the heartache along with Sinwar, and to a much lesser extent Israel, by foisting this two-state solution on people who would never put up with it. Like I lived in Israel for 2 years. You would have conversations with Arabs, some of whom are Israelis, you know, and they would say, look, you know, you just don't understand the West Bank, and you don't understand the difference between the West Bank and Gaza. And they would tell me straight up, you're going to get us all killed with this two-state solution. Stop it. And it was very hard for me to hear. But we're just having a child's conversation about the Middle East. And I will say this about the UK. The British Foreign Service had a different failure mode than the US. They really learned the regions. They learned the dialects of the languages of the countries that they were involved in. The British Empire took many places that they were involved in seriously, and they have a very complicated legacy. You know, I spent a lot of time in Bombay, and there's a lot of debate among very educated Indians about figuring out how to think about the British legacy, all of the great institutional structures that were built, all of the prejudice and bigotry. Why was such a small country able to colonize such a large land, basically working with the locals? You know, it's a rich conversation. We're having childlike conversations about all of this. I'm sorry if I'm going on about this, but it's just a very weird thing that we can't get anybody's attention. You can't even get my attention. You know, I'm watching hypersonic missiles slam into the places I just was. And then I'm watching a cat video.
That is definitely interesting for me. I think a lot of us are desensitized on big news, things that you would think that people take a little while to think about. A lot of people are just desensitized to it. When it comes to war, drones, hypersonic missiles, you're not hearing people and soldiers actually dying. Most times, if you don't have those weapons, you actually lose people. So a lot of people are desensitized to a lot of the consequences. It might actually get more interesting with drones, and when a lot of militaries don't have to send in their own military personnel, there is a chance that there's going to be increased violence and war around the world with technology. The thing with several years ago is that, you know, if you signed up for war, you would have to convince human beings to give up their life for sure, whether you win or you lose. This time around, there's a case to be made that if you have more weapons and technology, you don't get to lose a lot. So people are going to try to implement and impose their will in the form of war. I don't want to talk too much. I want to get back into what Eric Weinstein was talking about here in the conversation to the next part for this.
But if that's a distraction technique, do you have any hypothesis as to what was going on there?
But that's not my job.
Okay.
Because as soon as you do that, I know that the quality of my guessing is not going to be at the quality of my detecting when we're up to bullshit.
Okay.
So in other words, if you ask me, why is physics stagnant? I can say, I don't know, but there's a decent chance that we know how dangerous physics is and that it's crazy to do it in an open university environment. We've taken precautions. We have a system of national laboratories, which are effectively our secret university system, where you have to be an American. So we're using our regular universities and the whole world comes through it. You know, we have Chinese people learning physics side by side our own people.
And I guess you're saying that you don't know if UFOs exist, but you're sure now that they were faking the
I am
sightings.
absolutely positive that we have unacknowledged programs that have UFO written on the side of them.
Okay.
In other words, the number of people who repeat strikingly similar things, who appear to be completely sober in every other respect with no known acting ability. There is no way in the world that these people just spontaneously have decided to destroy their sanity, their career, and their reputation.
I've got you.
At a minimum, we're faking. I think we are doing a lot more than faking a UFO program. I don't know what it is, And I also would not be talking about this on a large podcast, but for one thing. I have a particular hatred for one aspect of our intelligence community. And I don't mean that I disagree or don't like or I'm not uncomfortable. When our secret squirrel club inside the intelligence world and inside, in particular, covert operations, targets our own people who are not read into these programs for personal destruction, reputational destruction, mental destruction, economic destruction. We take our best people and we make fun of them, and we belittle them, and we destroy their families, their lives, their ability to earn. I have a very strong sense that you never destroy your best people.
Do you think you're under attack?
Let me talk about Leo Szilard instead. Leo Szilard is the father of the Manhattan Project.
Which was where the nuclear bomb was created.
That's right. He was not allowed to go inside the Manhattan Project because they didn't trust him. He was a genius. He was the idea for the Manhattan Project. He and Einstein made sure that it happened. The government barely trusted Oppenheimer, if you saw the film. What they did with Leo Szilard was they minded him. They knew how good he was. They knew how important he was. They listened to him, and they didn't destroy him. He undoubtedly knew that the program was going on, but he wasn't allowed inside the program. I think that's okay. I think it's okay that our security state recognizes that some people are not cut out to keep secrets. Some people are not cut out to die with certain facts that have to be kept hidden. That's fine. The desire of our government to destroy people who have no idea what they've tripped over because our government isn't good enough to keep its own secrets. This is an abomination. You cannot destroy your A-team.
Who are you referring to when you say people are being destroyed? Are you referring to people like yourself?
You know, if you look at, for example, Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein conducted a conference called Confronting Gravity. I don't know who Jeffrey Epstein was, but I would certainly bet money that he was a product of at least one or more elements of the intelligence community.
The CIA, the FBI?
Those are ours, right? Department of Homeland Security has some of the stuff. Geospatial intelligence has some of this. You know, it's a large network. I'm talking about people like David Grush. I'm talking about people potentially like David Fravor. I'm talking about people like Jake Barber. I'm talking about scientists like Leo Szilard.
Okay, just gonna pause it there for a bit just to make a comment on his sentiment about the intelligence community. The interesting thing for me is the idea that CIA, Mossad, the intelligence communities around the world, French, British, MI6 and stuff like that. I'm a huge James Bond fan. I remember growing up and loving those whole series. I think I watched up to 22 of the James Bond series. But the interesting thing is these guys make their living out of lies, and they expect you to actually trust them. One thing you can trust about them is that they are gonna lie and they're good at it. And if you're not good at lying, you get fired or you get disgraced for it. So the ones that are the best and good at it, you can as well count that they're never, ever telling you the truth, because that's how they're good at it. So I find the conversation around the secrets and whatever they do and expecting some level of truth from whichever, all these, they're called intelligence agencies. They get intel, they make assessments and whatever. They live and breathe and execute on lies in general. So just a little comment from that. If you're shocked that you are ever going to get any real information, it's misinformation and sleight of hand. That's how they're considered, quote unquote, good at their job. We'll go to the next.
I have to be clear. I have to be clear on my understanding of what you're saying. From what I understood, and you can say, Steve, I'm not going to answer that, whatever, but I just have to, because you've opened up a curiosity hole in my mind.
Sure.
So let me try and fill it, even if it's the conversation I had with Chris.
I'll just evade you.
Fine.
Yeah, fine.
Fine. You're within
Good.
the right
Wonderful.
to evade me. And I hold the right to ask, which is, So what I'm hearing is you believe, and I'm just going to say it how I think it is, what I'm hearing is you believe that Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was planted in some way to interfere.
He was a construct, is what I said.
He was a construct in some way to mess with the progression of physics.
Jeffrey Epstein, apparently, I think I'll tell you what I said. When I met him, when the meeting was over, I immediately called my wife and I said, I have just met a construct. She said, what do you mean? I said, this person is not who they claim to be. Somebody has constructed this human being to be something that they are not, which is a hedge fund genius. Somebody who could understand the euro and the yen like nobody else. Bullshit. Not true. I believe that whoever constructed Jeffrey Epstein was running multiple different programs through the same thing, having put in a large initial investment. It wasn't about one thing. If you build a mall, you don't just have clothing stores in the mall, you have a food court in the mall, right? You have jewelry in the mall. You have all sorts of different things in the mall. Jeffrey Epstein was a construct of something that was running multiple things. One of those things was science. And I don't think that the science and the pedophilia were necessarily in the same bucket. He was funding all sorts of people. I don't think everybody at that, part of the problem with calling his plane the Lolita Express and calling his island Pedophile Island is that you just can't see all the different things that were going through this guy. I don't think almost any of those scientists are exposed, maybe a few of them, but very few of them, to anything really horrible. I think he was trying to keep a periscope on everything that was interesting. And I think that his girlfriend's father, Robert Maxwell, was all through scientific publishing. And I think Pergamon Press was in part a control mechanism for making sure that revolutionary discoveries were taking place within a framework. Anybody can, look, you can write a Substack article and you can hit post and suddenly the world has access to your Substack article. That is a nightmare. What if somebody posts, weaponized anthrax? What if they do the equivalent of saying, what if there's a neutral proton?
So you think he was controlling science?
I think that Robert Maxwell was in part trying to control science. I think Jeffrey Epstein was in part trying to fund science, trying to control it. I don't really know. Again, part of the problem with why conspiracy theorists have a bad name is that they're not content to live in ignorance. And I mean, I am. I know something is really off with this story. If you look at me saying things like, you don't know whether Biden is going to make it to November. Ha, 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 Eric, what an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then he has a debate. He doesn't make it to November. I'm not Nostradamus. I'm just dumb enough to say something in public that makes sense. Let me say something in public that makes sense. Our national security people suck at their jobs. The people who are in charge of the Department of Energy, which is masking the Department of Physics, which is masking the Department of Nuclear Weapons, right? The Atomic Energy Acts, which are really about atomic weaponry, recast as Atoms for Peace or who knows what. Jeffrey Epstein, who is not a disgraced financier. The newspapers that have always had a national interest component and have liaisons so that they can work with the CIA and the State Department and they do each other's bidding and scratch each other. This whole network is what I've called managed reality. We live in managed reality. We are all in some version of the Truman Show. And you can look at it, you can Google it. I can give you 1 million search terms. And every time I give 1 million search terms, you'll watch my reputation get torn apart. Are you going to blame me that you didn't know what the whole of society approach is because you didn't know the Daniel Inouye Center for Security in the Pacific came up with an idea for soft fascism to fight hybrid wars? You didn't know what hybrid warfare? Look at my talk at ARC, Jordan Peterson's group, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. It's at almost 2 million views. And why is it? Because people are saying, I didn't know these terms. Did you know what the Human Terrain Project is? Do you know about human terrain? You're a mountain, I'm a valley, and instead of war planners figuring out how do we use that valley to capture that mountaintop because it gives us an eagle's nest, to snipe from or whatever, they say, okay, this is the second most powerful podcast in the world, second to Joe Rogan. How do we capture it?
Fuck. Leave me alone, please.
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. You're human terrain.
Yeah.
When the human terrain wakes up and says, wait a minute, I'm human terrain? Well, my feeling is, if you don't want me to talk about this on a podcast, then keep your terms separate. Nobody knew the term pre-bunked malinformation. Do you know what pre-bunked malinformation is? Malinformation is information we don't want to get out. Technically, people try to pretend that it's information that will be misinterpreted, but really it's real stuff that is deleterious to the narratives that we're trying to push forward and what we're trying to do. And pre-bunked means discredited. So we knew what debunked, we have to debunk disinformation. We get that. But you didn't know that we had to
What a fascinating podcast. The full podcast, over 2 hours, 30 minutes. Really fascinating, a lot of topics touched. Can't prove or confirm a lot of it, but a lot of knowledge gained as well. I thought it was absolutely terrific. A lot of insight on that podcast as well. My name is Chitru. This is No Right, No Wrong. And don't forget, if for any reason you got to the end of this reaction to a different podcast for The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett, I think this video, well over 2.5 million views right now, full 2 hour, 30 minutes, absolutely viral. Very interesting conversations going on, and it's only going to rise. Check it out. It's absolutely amazing. Don't forget, leave a like, comment what you think about the clips or the full video if you get to watch it on here. And I just think there was a lot fun, interesting, and fascinating topics that actually came out in that conversation. Peace.